Welcome to Five or Flop, a podcast for the best and worst historical fiction has to offer. I'm your host, Erin.
And I'm Grace, and each week we'll be reading a different historical fiction book to see if they're a five or a flop.
Our theme for this season is family and friends, so we're letting our family and friends pick what we're reading, and we have an extra special guest this week, Santiago, my boyfriend.
Oh my god!
Who you've met before on our brief cocktail corner segment that some of you may have thought we were bringing back every week and then we never brought back.
But it's back this week.
Hell yeah.
Yay,
Santiago,
I am here.
Santiago, welcome.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Santiago, would you like to tell the people what we are reading this week?
Okay, we're reading Brazil-Maru by Karen Tei Yamashita.
All right, and why did you pick this book?
Well, I'm learning a lot of Portuguese. I find Brazilian culture really interesting. You told me to pick a book. I googled Brazilian book that is historical fiction, and this is one of the ones that popped up, kind of caught my eye, and I chose it. That's why.
This was also right on the heels of our Brazil trip earlier, actually, at the time of publication, about a year ago.
Yeah, unfortunately. Yeah, 11 months ago.
And though unbeknownst to you, this is actually a very appropriate book to be reading, because unbeknownst to me until I started reading it, this book deals with Japanese Christians, which we have already learned about this season reading Silence with my brother.
Yes, so very different time period, not at all similar groups, but some overlap.
Hey, it connects. We can read all these World War II books. We can read 2 books about Japanese Christians.
Exactly, especially different continents. But anyways, let's get back to the most important matter at hand. Santiago, what are we drinking tonight?
Oh my god, yes. Okay, so I call this a Caipirinha Maru. So, yes, Caipirinha Maru. So it's the same ingredients as a Caipirinha, which, go ahead.
Could you explain a little bit, like, the significance of a Caipirinha?
Yeah, a Caipirinha, that's a national drink of Brazil. It's made with cachaça, which is basically rum, just made with sugarcane instead of molasses. And the interesting thing about this is Caipirinha Maru, I'm combining both Japanese and Brazilian liquors. Because I use cachaça.
Ooh.
I use cachaça, which is a Brazilian liquor, and I'm using the cherry blossom liqueur that Erin brought from Japan.
Many years ago, over 2 years ago at this point.
I mean, it doesn't go
I
bad,
love how
right?
many years ago means 2.
Listen.
So yeah, it's with I use the whole entire lime to make sure that zest is really in there. You got that zesty flavor. You got a little bit more complexity from the cherry blossom liqueur, and I put just a tiny bit of sweetened condensed milk to just add some sort of creaminess, which you find in a lot of like Asian sweet drinks sometimes, especially like in Korea, for example. I don't know, but I kind of whipped this up together, and it's all right. It's it could use a little more work.
Erin and I, our tastes in drinks and stuff run very similar. We're like a fresh, fruity, bubbly kind of girl, and I find this extremely delightful.
This is really good. I did have Santiago add some extra simple syrup to mine because I like drinks really sweet. But I did take a picture, and as long as I remember to post it on Instagram, you can see what it looks like.
Amazing.
We'll do our best.
We'll try. Anyways, what's been up with everyone? Grace, you've been having an exciting week.
Yes, it was, as of recording, yesterday was my birthday. So obviously the episode, because we're so ahead of the game, will be published long after my birthday. Mm-hmm. But as of now, I am 28 years old.
Old.
Yes, old.
And what are you doing to celebrate / what did you do to celebrate?
Well, it fell on a Wednesday this year, so nothing day of other than, like, I treated myself to taking the day off of work, had a nice dinner with my boyfriend, but we, present company included, not Flynn, sorry Flynn, are bar crawling this weekend.
I think actually Flynn should come.
Well, she hasn't RSVP'd, so that's just rude.
Yeah, exactly.
Erin, what about you?
Oh, today was our office party at work, and some companies have really, really fun holiday parties, and they go out to different, like, dinners and bowling and fun stuff. These are just some things the other office locations that my company did. Ours is an in-office party because we're the headquarters. All of the executives are there, and my team is working the event to get video and interview quotes the entire time.
Wait, why do you need video footage of the holiday party?
Because it goes in our end-of-the-year video.
Yeah.
But we are not really allowed to call it a holiday party, so there is a Christmas tree in the background, but we have to cut all mentions to anything holiday in the video.
Mm.
So we're doing our best, but I don't know. We have to kind of like scarf down our food very quickly. Can't really participate. But I did have 2 cocktails, which honestly made it a lot easier, like trying to corral all the people I needed for interviews, because it's just so much easier to butt into conversation that way.
Inhibitions are down.
Exactly. But yeah, so that was my day. I'm kind of wiped, but it was successful. My team is amazing, so can't really complain. Everything went almost smoothly.
Santiago, do you have any party shenanigans to discuss or anything else?
Not really. Like about a week and a half ago, we just got back from Miami from our cruise.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I haven't even talked on the pod about us getting back. This is the first episode we've recorded post-cruise.
Yes, so we just got back from the cruise. It was absolutely amazing. Miami was beautiful as always and very gentrified because that's Miami.
Yep.
But-
Miami is so different than Orlando.
Yeah, but that was already like a week and a half ago. But today, my office does a bake-off, my organization.
Ooh.
So I have, oh my God, there were like 25 different cookies, and I ate so much sugar. My stomach is so full of sugar, and I haven't eaten real food in several hours.
He's gonna crash in the middle of this episode.
I'll be
And now
okay.
you're having a cocktail.
And now I'm having a cocktail. I'm moving offices, so right now we're in the Senate office buildings, and because the Rules Committee wants the office for some reason, they're moving us to some office building in next to the Union Station. So for those of you who don't know, Union Station is DC's train station.
You can get canes for lunch.
Yes. So now just been a lot of packing, so much packing. So many emails from 2007 printed out for some damn reason. Yeah, so that was my week. Those were my updates.
Okay. All right. Well, Grace, what are you reading?
I am doing my Aaron impression by reading a book from a former pod author.
And this is what I actually want to read really badly.
Yes, so I read Yellowface by R.F. Kuang, and it served multiple purposes. One is that I wanted to read it just cause. 2 is that every year on Storygraph, in addition to the 5 or Flop Season 5 reading challenge, I do the alphabet challenge, and I did not have a Y yet, and we're getting close to the end of the year. / this episode may come out after the year has ended.
This episode comes out in January.
Anyway, so it was really, really good, actually. R.F. Kuang had, other than Babel, 4 other books. 3 of them are a fantasy trilogy, so I'm just not particularly interested in reading those. I'm sure they're good. Everyone says they're good. They're not my thing.
This is a relatively anti-fantasy pod.
We don't mean to be, but that's how it turns out.
I mean to be.
But Yellowface is a contemporary, and it's about a white woman who's a writer, and she's friends with this extremely successful Asian writer, and the Asian writer dies, and the white woman steals her last manuscript and passes it off as her own. And I thought it was really well done, and obviously written from the position of, like, the villain, but you're in her head, so she doesn't think of herself that way.
Like the TV show You.
Exactly like the TV show You, which I've never seen and don't want to watch. But I would highly recommend Yellowface. I thought it was excellent. I think I gave it 4.75.
Wow. I have something I would highly not recommend. And I just finished listening to the Match Trilogy by our friend Ali Condi on audiobook.
I don't think Ali Condi wants to be our friend after what we have to say about her.
After we bashed her, I think like 4 episodes in a row or something like that. Anyways, the books were atrocious. I don't remember. I think I mentioned that I was starting the trilogy. I don't think I gave any thoughts other than these are really bad. I had never read the second and third growing up. Really bad. The third was the best of the 3. That one got a 2.5. So not really great. She was definitely leaving the door open to be the next Hunger Games and like write spin-off books and shit. Didn't happen for her. But you know, so glad my girl Kasha, because that's the name, did okay.
How's that spelled? Do you know?
Well, I did the audiobook, so I don't know. But I think they did spell it out at one point. Oh, yes, because she's learning to write because I can't write. Because the society, which is called The Society. I think it is Cassia.
Okay.
Kasha Reyes.
Okay.
There was a guy named Xander and a guy named Kai, and of course it was a love triangle. Anyways, Santiago, I know you're not currently reading anything, so I have a different question for you. Are you ready?
Okay, yeah, I am.
It's actually a 2-part question. What is the best Wikipedia page you've read recently and the worst Wikipedia page you've read recently?
Oh my God, that's exactly what I was going to mention. I know I don't really read very many books at all, but God
Read a
damn
lot
it,
of
I love Wikipedia. I am always on that MFer, dude. So, because of the cruise, I don't know, I've never been on a cruise. It's really interesting being out in the middle of nowhere in the ocean. I've read just about every Wikipedia page there is for every ocean liner there's ever been made. I know everything there is to know about the evolution of ocean liners, going from steam engines to coal engines. I've read so much about it, including the Titanic and whatnot, steerage class, etc., etc. So, that's been my recent Wikipedia obsession.
And what's been the worst Wikipedia page you've read recently? If you can
Hmm.
pick. I know you read so many pages.
Well, the only pages I have a complaints about are the ones that are better in Spanish than they are in English.
Oh, like Love in the Time of Cholera.
Yeah, I guess you could say that. I don't know. Colombian elections are coming up next year. I've been reading about the political parties, but there's very little English language content, of course.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I don't really have a good answer for that one.
Okay, well, any answer is still a good answer. So thank you. All right, I think it's synopsis time.
All right, and just for a reminder, we haven't mentioned it in a while, but this is Brazil-Maru by Karen Tei Yamashita. Japanese immigrants in Brazil build an isolated communal settlement in the rainforest, prey to the charisma of one man. The story of a band of Japanese immigrants who arrive in Brazil in 1925 to carve a utopia out of the jungle. The dream of creating a new world, the cost of idealism, the symbiotic tie between a people and the land they settle, and the changes demanded by a new generation all collide in this multi-generational saga.
See, I feel like that's not a good synopsis because I didn't really get a lot of that from the book.
It's quite vague, the synopsis. It talks a big game, but it's also quite short.
Yeah, no, this is like 240 pages.
Yeah. Oh, yes. So I guess maybe the synopsis fits
The lane.
yeah, anyway. So let's talk about Karen Tei Yamashita, because I actually had not heard of her before. I don't know that any of us had, to be honest. But Karen Tei Yamashita was born in 1951 in Oakland. Nowadays, she is a writer and also a professor of writing at UC Santa Cruz. She has published 9 books. All of them are with this small publisher called Coffee House Press. I felt like that was worth noting because she seems to be like very loyal to them. A lot of her books, even though they're not related to each other, have a similar cover style, all of that. Her most notable book is one called I, Hotel. It was a finalist for the National Book Award in 2010, so big deal. Props to Karen. And Brazil-Maru, which we're reading today, is her second book, and that came out in 1992. So she has lived in Brazil before. She lived in Brazil for about 9 years. She went down there for research and met her husband down there. Lived in Brazil for a while before they came back to California. And she is still actively publishing. I think she has a book coming out in 2026, actually. But in 2021, she was given the Lifetime Achievement Award for Distinguished Contribution to American Letters from the National Book Foundation, which I think is her highest achievement other than being longlisted for that National Book Award.
I don't know if I would have given her that award. We will get into my thoughts on her letters soon.
But am I right that none of us were familiar with her before?
That's
I have
correct.
no idea who she is.
Yeah. Okay. Well, at the very least, we now are more informed than we were before.
All right. Should I just hop into our disclaimer?
Yep.
Okay. Our judgments come based on the book and characters within the book rather than any real historical figures they may have been based on, and spoilers ahead. Who wants to start?
I'll start. I have a problem with the way that this book was structured.
Okay.
It's told in 4 distinct parts. The parts are not of equal length. I'll get into that. And they're each from the POV of a different character. And I feel like they were not chosen well.
It definitely felt like they were just kind of picked out of a hat, chosen randomly. Except for Kantara.
Yeah. Well, Kentaro is kind of the axis around which the book rotates. He's like the charismatic leader of the commune.
Very, very much cult vibes the entire time.
Yeah. So you understand why you might be in his perspective, but I actually thought it was odd to have a book with 4 perspectives and he's just one of them. I thought it would be smarter to either be in his head the whole time or not be in his head at all.
Mm-hmm.
But the last 2, the first and the last perspective, were just random boys living on the commune. While I was reading the first perspective, I was like, I have no idea why this kid of all people is important.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second perspective is Kentaro's wife, which I thought would be super interesting, especially because we get all these hints in the first part about her like having this weird interiority.
Mm-hmm.
And her part was so short and we learned nothing about her,
Mm-hmm.
which really pissed me off.
Yeah, we only found out that she's just working wife, and that's all the value that was added to her.
Yeah, she was like, I guess it was just my destiny to have Kentaro's children, which I don't think it was, because tons of other guys wanted to marry her, so she could have had anyone's children. Kentaro ends up cheating on her, spoiler, but we already gave our disclaimer, and we don't really see how she reacts to that.
They just pretty much said she found out and was mad for a bit, but then he, like, convinced everyone it was fine.
Yeah, there was, like, a week where she leaves the settlement and comes back. And then when people are like, where did you go? Where were you? She was like, what do you mean? I was always here.
Which I did like that. I liked just, like, that gaslighting. It felt like it fit very well with her character.
I liked it, too, but I wanted more than that.
I wanted to know what happened.
Yeah. I wanted to know what happened, or just for everyone to not immediately accept her explanation so quickly. Or, like, a big part of it was that her husband didn't even notice she was gone.
Mm-hmm.
And that felt unresolved to me. So then you get into the perspective of Kentaro, who's, like, stealing money from the commune. He's using it to live this lavish lifestyle with his mistress, like, all of this. And then the last part has weird sex stuff, which is weird because none of the other parts do.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of weird sex stuff in the last part by a guy who, I'm going to be real mean here, tries to kill himself, and it would have been fine with me if he succeeded. He sucked so bad.
I hated the last time. I remember I finished it and I told Santiago, I'm like, why was this in here at all? I don't even know who this guy is, really. Why is he relevant?
It was a character that was introduced at the end. Like, at least the first 3 parts, they were like, here's the first guy. He's going to introduce you to who these other 2 people are from his view. And then you move into their view, you know. The fourth part is a character we've never met before. Some whiny teenage boy who lives in the commune. And it's falling apart. Like, the evolution of what happens to the commune in the wake of their, like, basically having a financial crisis is interesting. But this whiny kid is not interesting, and he sucks.
He just wants to smoke cigarettes and paint all day.
And watch the new, like, hot young dancer lady in the commune have sex with her boyfriend.
Yeah. No, I thought that section was the weakest. I liked Kentaro's section the best. It's a stretch to say I really liked any of the sections. Kentaro's was the best because I thought plot-wise it was the most interesting. Like, him being this cult leader figure, kind of building up the commune, which was based on what, like something to do with chickens. Yeah. And then just, they made like a lot of money and he just squandered all of it. And just like he pitted his investors off each other so that they were in crazy debt to each other. And just, it was very interesting to me.
Yeah. And the downfall part was interesting because he kept being able to get money from being charismatic and trustworthy to people, and then he would just take the money and then blow it again.
One thing that I found really frustrating with Kantaro's Birds was how, well, me coming from a perspective of someone who doesn't read very often, it's just kind of spoon-fed to me that he is there living his life, and he runs into a situation, and he always decides to do the stupid thing, just kind of like blowing money and then like just running around with these women makes, I don't know. I found him to be a very, very, very frustrating character to read about because, like, a reasonable person wouldn't be doing like half the shit that he did. Like,
no, absolutely. And actually, to sidetrack a little bit what you said about it, like that being spoon-fed to you, that is kind of how I felt about this book as a whole. Like, everything was very spoon-fed. All of the sentences were like, and then I did this, and then I did this. And I've said before on the pod that I don't like when a book treats its reader like they're dumb. And I felt that was the case here.
And I think one of the things is, it would be interesting to read about Kentaro if we were being told in a different way about the things that he does. But this book, a lot of it, I think the characters lack interiority. Like, I think we're being told and not shown through a lot of this book. And I think that is one of the problems. that, like, especially that's one of the reasons I was so frustrated with Haru's chapter, who's Kentaro's wife. You just hear so little about who she is, even though she's clearly this very complex woman. Like, in the first part, there's a scene where the young boy witnesses on Haru and Kentaro's wedding night. She runs, like, screaming naked out of their house, being like, this is a sin, this is a sin, and he, like, hauls her back in. And I, having read the table of contents and knowing that her part is next, I'm like, I cannot wait to hear what, like, that whole thing is about, and it never comes up again.
Honestly, I forgot about that because it was just dropped.
Yeah, and there's a lot of things like that I just think that are not followed through to the maximum potential that they have, because there's a lot of interesting things going on in this book, but they're not executed in the best way to take advantage of them.
Kind of along with the execution of the book, I was also a little annoyed at the fact that new characters were dropping left, right, and center.
Oh,
They're just
God.
names getting dropped everywhere, and maybe these characters would come back in like 10 chapters later. Maybe you'll never hear from them ever again. There's no telling. So I was very much confused following along, especially the Baiano. So one of the characters is like as a Brazilian person, actually from Brazil. He's not Japanese at all, but I don't know. He kind of comes and goes as, however, comes and goes as was convenient to the plot.
Yeah, I completely agree. There were like a lot of characters who came in and out, which I do feel is like accurate to this setting and this environment. But at the same time, when you're throwing them all at us in such a condensed format, it is just creating more confusion.
Yeah, I fully agree.
I do want to say one nice thing about the book.
I was actually going to go into two things I did really like about this book, so go ahead.
Yeah, I felt it was really easy to kind of follow along the timeline. It was very obvious as to like, okay, these folks just came off the boat, and these people are now kind of developing their commune, and now they found a bunch of success. So I have like a pretty strong idea throughout the book, like how old they are, how many kids they have, like the year sometimes is given to us straight up, like it's the 50s, it's the 40s, whatever. But at the same time, I appreciated it as someone who doesn't read very often.
Two things that I really liked were kind of like two facets of their society. The first one being the role of baseball, which I'm sure we'll talk about. The second one being the implications of World War II in their society.
I agree. I also liked both of those things.
I don't know which we want to talk about first, if anyone has a...
I will say, I did do a lot of research at work today about the historical bit, so I'd be happy to dig into that.
We'll get there.
We'll get there.
We have to put a pin in that for a later section. But what I did like with the World War II piece, there was a lot of debate in camp, or there was a lot of debate in their commune about like the two different camps of, you know, some people thinking, oh, the Japanese could never win the war, and then the other part being like, what are you talking about? Like, of course there are. And then, of course, the implications of Japanese being rounded up and arrested because Brazil was so tight with the United States following Pearl Harbor. So I thought that was interesting and played a big role in the plot without kind of derailing it. I thought that was done very well. And then baseball, which is still known to be like, if baseball is number one associated with the United States, number two is Japan. And they get this baseball team going in their community, and that plays such a major role. And Kentaro, a lot of why he becomes this charismatic leader is because when he was young, he really pushed for this baseball team, and he was one of their star players.
The baseball, like the popularity of baseball in Japan is one of those things that I need and want to look more into because it is so fascinating to me. Because I've always been like, obviously being raised in America, you're like, it's the American pastime and all that. And most other countries don't really play baseball. But now we have Shohei Ohtani. And obviously we all in America know that baseball is really popular in Japan. But I don't really know how that happened. And I didn't look into it for this because it's not central enough to the plot. But I definitely want to be looking into that more.
It's a new Wikipedia page for you to look into later, Santiago.
I think it would have been very interested kind of playing along with the baseball bit if the book kind of just stayed in that period. If they would have just kind of stayed within, you know, when their community was being developed, in the 20s through the 30s. I would have enjoyed if the book would just like really focus and develop the characters within a single piece of time instead of just being like, here's what happened during the 40s, here's what happened during the 50s, etc.
I completely agree with you because they call it a multi-generational saga. I don't think that's an accurate description. I think you follow pretty much the same characters for decades, very long periods of time. And I agree, there either needed to be like the passing off of the story to the younger generations, which would turn this into a longer book. And I think that would have been more successful, or could have stayed focused in like the 20s and 30s.
Well, I think we can't really go anywhere because we start with the youngest generation. Mm-hmm. The first perspective, we start with that character when he's 9 and we follow him through when he's like 18 or 20. But he comes over from Japan to Brazil with like his parents and his grandparents. So there's not really anywhere to go from there because we don't go far enough in the story for him to have children, really. Mm-hmm. Like he could, he doesn't, but he could, I guess. But I guess that's a choice that kind of kneecapped the multi-generational possibilities. Although, of course, there are characters of multiple generations, but we don't really evolve through them the way that we did with, say, like Pachinko.
Mm-hmm. The last note I have in my notes document on this book was, what the fuck? I think that kind of sums up how I felt about this whole book, but especially like leading to the ending. It just, I don't know, like everything felt slightly off to me with this book.
One of the things that I noticed, the prose in this book didn't really work for me. I felt, well, first of all, I thought the opening line was just bad. I wrote it down, and it's not going to sound bad when I say it out loud, but it was 1925, Sao Paulo. And I'm just like, Jesus Christ, like, is this a screenplay? Like, you can give me more of a sentence than that.
Oh my God, that reminds me when I was in high school, I went to creative writing summer camp at the University of Iowa. Not their full, like, big program, but a week-long version of it. And the fiction writing group was the largest, so it was split into 2 classes. And one class, the goal of the week was to write, like, multiple smaller short stories, but one full-length short story. Each had a different time period. Mine was the 60s.
Ah.
And a lot of people in my class were more poetry rather than prose. So, writing quality was very well. And so many of their stories started, it was the 60s. Like, come on now.
Yeah, but then I just felt like, I almost felt like each sentence was crafted to stand alone. Like, I felt like the sentences didn't flow from one to the other. It's like when you're ordering a multi-course meal, you have to make sure that all of the foods complement each other and they're not just what you want individually, because otherwise you will end up with a tummy ache, which is what I ended up with after reading this and being like, the sentences don't flow together. But I also even wrote down, the last thing that I wrote down in my notes was like, wow, that ending. And to be honest, I read this book like 2-3 weeks ago and I don't remember how it ended.
Oh, good thing is I wrote that down. Ends with Kentaro and others dying in a plane crash, ? Sure.
Yeah. So it's crazy that I didn't remember that.
And then there's like this weird epilogue from like some other rando's point of view. And it's about the last guy what was his name? Genji? The last point of view?
Yes,
Genji.
The guy we hate.
The guy we hate. And it's like, some say that he was like lost, wandering, drunk in the wilderness, like something like that. And it's like, I don't care enough about this character to be the mystery ending. That mystery figure should have been Kentaro, or it shouldn't have happened.
Yeah, I concur.
What did you think of the ending, Santiago?
I in my notes, I said, computer chips, ? I remember something about computer chips being mentioned. Then this dude just roamed the Amazon drawing is wild, because they found a bunch of his drawings on chalkboard for some reason. I said, of course he kills himself. And then the last note I said, damn, sad ending. But I don't know, it was kind of, I felt like it was a bit rushed.
Yeah, they were like smuggling computer chips to make money.
That's
or
right.
Something.
Yeah, they were smuggling computer chips to Bolivia or something to avoid tariffs or taxes. I reread the bit where for some reason the airplane was crashing. I did not understand why the airplane crashed. I reread it 10 times. Like, this just kind of came out of nowhere. I don't know. I took issue with that. Oh, she has things to say. I took issue with that ending.
There were also, we led into this by mentioning that this is the second book that we've read about Japanese Christians. And it was actually super irrelevant that they were Christians. Like, it didn't really matter at all.
It only mattered in, like, the first chapter.
Like, it mattered that they were Japanese, and it mattered that they were living on a commune. Because people were like, why are you being weird and living on this weird commune instead of just farming like normal people? But we don't really see them worship. We don't really see them get discriminated against. Only like one or two people are ever like, why are you guys Christians? That's weird.
It doesn't play like a single role in their lives.
So
No.
when I was doing some research about the Japanese coming to Brazil, I think she could have used some of the actual real historic information to justify why the heck they're in Brazil, because the Christian bit, like you guys said, doesn't really play into the plot at all very much. But there were very, very, very good reasons as to why so many Japanese migrated to Brazil during that time period, which we'll get to. But I really didn't see the reason to kind of emphasize the fact that they were Christian.
And for context for the audience, the main reason given in the book of why the majority of these people migrated was because they were broke in Japan and were trying to come and like make more money, et cetera, et cetera.
And there were incentives to do so in Brazil because they needed people to farm land essentially outside of Sao Paulo. Is this a segue into the historical accuracy?
Honestly, like, this was a short book. I really don't have much more to say. I thought it was pretty bland.
Yeah, I wasn't super impressed. I think that's why. So, for those of you who may not know, it took me about 6 months to read the book. Because I wasn't really drawn to it. I feel like if I would have picked a more interesting one, I maybe would have been more drawn to reading it, but I don't know, Aaron has something to say.
In comparison, how long did it take you to read Where the Crawdads Sing, which was the only other book I've seen you read?
I really, I don't remember. 4 months?
And that's a longer book.
Yeah,
And also, you know, good, but not that good.
That's our official pod stance on Where the Crawdads Sing.
Good,
Good,
not,
but
well, we can't read it because the author has the
murder charge.
The murder charge.
Oh my god, I didn't know that.
She's like wanted for questioning for murder and like illegal poaching or something like that. So we opted to not read Where the Crawdads Sing for the pod.
We don't want to get canceled.
The more you know.
We don't have enough listeners to get canceled, but that's okay. All right, I think that's a good segue. I don't know which of you, it sounds like you both did research for me to sit here and listen politely to. Who wants to start?
We'll just tag team.
Okay. Awesome. I'm very excited for this stuff because I read the Wikipedia page front to cover. It was so much fun reading it.
Also, officially, our stance on the pod is Wikipedia is a great jumping off point, but we can't promise you that everything on there is correct.
Yeah, it's a good jumping off point. Some of the pages, like, they cite their sources really well, but let me get started. Okay, so back in the 1850s, Brazil abolished slavery, causing a major labor shortage. So the Brazilian government incentivized a lot of European migration. So in Brazil, you do find a lot of communities of Spaniards, Portuguese folks, Italians, Germans, etc. While this did help with the labor shortage in Brazil for a while, some countries like Italy decreed a halt to migration into Brazil for several different reasons. Now, the reason it kind of worked to increase Japanese migration is that during the agricultural modernization in the Meiji period in Japan, many rural workers in Japan were simply out of work. You know, they would be working in the fields, but now there's tractors to do their job. And Japan's it's a small island with a massive population. With overpopulation, that kind of exacerbated their issues.
So it's the tractors were like AI coming for my job.
Exactly. AI is coming for all of our jobs, and we need to migrate away from this planet because there's nowhere else to go. So because of the overpopulation in Japan and their modernization efforts, the Brazilian government saw reason to kind of work with the Japanese government to incentivize migration. So because they had obviously a labor shortage. So this ended up with the very first Japanese migrants arriving in 1908. Now I forget, I think the ship's name was the Katsumaru, was the very first boat
I wrote
to
that
arrive.
down.
Yeah, in the state of Sao Paulo.
Just in case you forgot, Grace also did research.
I didn't need to.
So, yeah, Japanese migration in Brazil peaked in the 20s and 30s, and there was many allegations of very, very harsh conditions because a lot of the landowners in Brazil were very used to like slave labor and just like very harsh conditions. So that didn't go over well with a lot of the Japanese folks. So that's why you do see very strong Japanese identity in Brazil, especially due to like racial things, but that's besides the point. So, Japanese migrants were a huge part of Brazilian agriculture back in the early 1900s, especially in Sao Paulo. So, one very interesting factoid I found is that the Japanese living in the Sao Paulo state made 3.5% of the state's population, but they were responsible for 100% of the production of silk, peaches, 99% of the strawberries, mint, tea, 80% of potato production and vegetables,
Oh my
70%
God.
70% of production of eggs, 50% of the production of bananas, 40% of cotton, and 20% of coffee produced in Sao Paulo state. That's crazy when 3.5% of your population is producing that much stuff.
And
So
eggs, famously, what they were producing in the book.
yeah, exactly. So I kind of going back to the book, I think it would have been more interesting if they would have, if the author could have talked a little bit more about how maybe agriculture was like the driving force to bring them to Brazil and not so much like Christianity, which didn't really play a part in the book.
They also, once the commune in the book goes under and kind of new management takes over, they do switch to silk production. So you do see that represented.
You do.
So a lot of things in Brazil kind of changed for the Japanese migrants during World War II. Just like in the United States, you had those internment camps for folks of Japanese heritage. The same sort of things were happening in Brazil, as we mentioned earlier. There was a lot of like repression of like Japanese newspapers. If you're caught speaking Japanese in the streets, that was a problem. But after 1947 or so, a lot of these racialized issues kind of were swept under the rug, and life kind of continued on for these communities in Brazil. But one thing that was found by a lot of these scholars is that few like younger generations of these Japanese migrants have assimilated, especially through language. They don't speak Japanese unless they speak with their older relatives like grandparents and such, but they still, one thing that still holds true with the Japanese communities in Brazil is cuisine.
Hmm.
So cuisine is still like a shared thing that is still very Japanese in Brazil, although they don't really identify with some of the Japanese language, for example.
Well, and I'll hop in and say, I think one of the things that I found was the reason that there were so much more assimilationist in the like second and third generation is after World War II, it became clear to them that they were not going back to Japan. Like there was always the thought maybe for that first generation that they would one day go back to Japan. And then losing World War II really made it evident that they were not going to go back.
Yeah, so in the book, the book touches on this a little bit, saying that this the soil is so fertile, we're going to be so successful growing literally anything on the land, and you know, a lot of these migrants did think that they would hit it big in Brazil and then go back to Japan, but that wasn't the case for several
No.
different reasons.
Yeah, that clearly was not happening.
So the last factoid I have is that in Brazil, there's an estimated 2 million Japanese Brazilians in Brazil. Of those, 2,040,000 hold Japanese citizenship. So it's crazy to think that, yes, a few 100,000 people came from Japan to South America, and now there's millions of them kind of around Sao Paulo. And it's a very unique community in Latin America.
That is very unique. Thank you for all your research.
Yeah, oh my god, I love researching stuff. I love Wikipedia.
Grace, it looks like you have maybe one thing here also to touch on your second bullet.
I have a couple of facts to sprinkle on top of that. One is that, like, to put a finer point on that 2 million number, the largest population of Japanese people outside of Japan is in Brazil. So clearly, like, that's the result of, you know. And then also the way that the immigration was shaped, not only by Japan and its policies and Brazil and its policies, but by America's policies, where, and they mentioned this in the book, that when America legally excluded Asian immigrants, essentially, they also, the Chinese, that redirected a lot more of the Japanese immigrants to Brazil rather than to California. So first, that was in 1908 with the Gentleman's Agreement, which kind of spurred, that's when that first wave with that first boat came over from Japan to Brazil. And then more formally in 1924 with the Oriental Exclusion Act, which is not a nice name. But my thing that I wanted to look up first is this book is called Brazil-Maru, and Brazil-Maru is the name of the boat that they come over on. And so when researching, we obviously both encountered the first boat is called the Kasato Maru. And I was like, what is all of this Maru stuff? Is it like how in English we say like the SS whatever? Like what do they, you know? And no one really knows why in Japan a lot of boat names end with Maru. The word Maru means circle, but there's no answer on why they do that. I think by now they just do it. I know boat people are superstitious, so I guess that's why. But they just did it and it worked. They keep doing it. But yeah, no one knows. That's that.
All right, that's pretty much all the points I have for the historical bit. The book is pretty accurate on the history bit, but I would have loved to have heard a little bit more and have that flushed out a bit more.
I agree with you. It seems, and we're about to go to our star calculator, seems accurate, but at the same time, I don't think it was applied well. I think it's a very rich history that I don't think hit its mark in this book. All right, so I think with that, it's a good time to head over to our star calculator. So I'm the only one with a laptop here, so I will be punching in these numbers.
And would you like also to remind us of our categories?
I would love to, and you knew I was about to. We rank on the categories of historical accuracy, originality, characters, prose, and vibes. I can get us started. Well, like I just said, I thought it was accurate, but I don't think the history was used in a really successful way here. So I would go like a 2 for historical accuracy for me. Originality, I'm going to go a little higher. This is not a topic I've seen a lot about, and I thought it was interesting that it was set in a commune specifically. So I'm going to go for a 4 for originality. Characters, Grace, I agree with a lot of what you said. I didn't think they had a lot of interiority. Kantaro was really the only one who was fully explored in a successful way to me. So I'm going to give it a 2 for characters. Prose, this was the weakest aspect of the book for me. I thought the sentences were bland. I thought the writing style itself was bland. It was a complete miss for me. I don't like books that treat me like I'm dumb. And vibes, I don't know. What was hard about this is that of the group of the three of us, I was the last one to read this, and neither of you made me excited for this book. You were both like, this is not good. So I feel like I'm going to go a little more generous with maybe a 2 there, because I feel like I was swayed a little bit. But that is a 2.2. I either gave this a 2.25 or a 2.5. That is a definite flop for me.
All right, I'll go next. I actually am going to go 4 for historical accuracy. I feel like it was used fine. I think any shortcomings from that just come from the writing of the book and not the application of the history. So it doesn't really reach the bar for a Grace 5 for me on that, but I thought it was used fine.
Very few books reach the bar.
I know, a lot more this season have, though. I don't know. Originality, I agree with you I thought at the very least this book going in, I really had no expectations because I had not heard of Karen Tei Yamashita before, but I thought at the very least this is an interesting idea. So I was excited to read it at least on that basis. Characters, 2, I didn't really like any of them, and I also don't think they were used or developed very well, which is unfortunate. Prose, also 2. This is one of my least favorite written books that we've read for the pod, just in terms of the craft of it. I did not enjoy that at all. And so for vibes, I'm also going to have to go 2. I'm not going to go 1 because this book didn't move me to hatred. But as I was reading it, I was not enjoying myself very much. And I was happy to be done and get along. I can push through a book pretty well. That's one of my skills. And I had to apply it in this instance. So that's a 2.8. I gave it a 2.25 on Storygraph, and I agree that this is a flop.
And I actually checked my Storygraph because I still don't have it pulled up in advance. I actually give this a 1.75.
Low.
Very low. All right, Santiago, you're up. Do you need me to remind you of categories as we go?
I got them right here. All right, for historical accuracy, I have to agree with Grace. I'd say a 4. I think she could have applied it a little bit better, but it was just matter of fact very it was pretty on the nose with how things were in World War II and the wave of immigration from Japan in the 20s and 30s. So I think she got that. She did her research. I can definitely tell. Originality, I hate to say it, I have to give it a 4. I've known of the large Japanese community in Brazil, and there's a large Brazilian community in Japan, but I've never really considered as to why they're there, or where they came from. So this is something that the general public just doesn't know, especially in the United States. The general public doesn't know much about, and I think it's pretty original. So I have to say 4. Although I don't know, I feel like this what I want to talk more about is the vibes, but I'll get to that.
You have to go in order.
Yes. So characters. Number 3, characters. Characters. That's like a 1. Karen, what the heck were you doing, dude? Those characters were not great. They just came in at you left, right, and center. Out of nowhere, someone just commits suicide. Another character just randomly dies, and
Oh my god, I forgot about the random suicide
oh yeah,
in the middle of the book.
Yeah, I forgot the guy's name here, but anyway, I wrote this dude's name.
I don't remember that either.
Ritsu is his name.
No, that was the girl he was into.
Oh,
He was into Ritsu, and then someone was like, sorry, you're never gonna get her, so he hung himself in the forest.
that's right.
Genuinely,
No, he didn't hang. No, he shot himself. There was another character that hung herself.
genuinely, none of this is clicking with me. Not a single one of these
It
things.
just really comes to show how unimportant these characters are.
There were actually 2 suicides, though.
So
I
yes,
remember the murders. There were murders, and I remember those.
Yeah, there were a few murders.
And I remember that one really violent guy. He actually was an
Yogu.
interesting character to me. Yogu, who got hit over the head. I remember that.
And then, lost his, bodily function for the most part.
Yeah.
yeah. So Yogu,
I remember that.
Yogu and his wife, they just ran off into the forest, and for 5 years they disappeared. They
And then
came
came
back
out with 8 kids.
with 8 kids, and the guy is like a vegetable. He can't talk. He can't do anything for himself. It's like, wow, I feel bad for the girl. Kimmy, is it her name?
Kimmy.
Yeah.
All right.
And back in her youth, she played the piano. Poor Kimmy.
So as I was saying, back to characters, I thought there were maybe 1 or 2 standout characters, Kentaro, for example, but Karen missed the mark when it comes to just really fleshing them out. So a 2, a 1.5, but I know you guys don't like half scores.
You originally gave it a 1. Would you like to give it a 1 or 2? You can give a half.
I'll say a very weak 2.
Very weak, too.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Pros, for the writing style, wow, it was spoon-fed to me. Oh my god, just put a bib on me and call me a baby. They gave it to me so simply. And then this happened, and then that other thing happened. 5 years later, this is what happened. I didn't feel like she was challenging me as a reader at all. And it says a lot because I don't really read very much.
I was going to say that's interesting because I feel like for someone who's not a reader, you could have gone either way on that. You could have really liked that.
Yeah, I think that spoon feeding made it very easy to know, oh, they're in the 40s. They're in whatever year. But from just the writing itself, it didn't help the book be more engaging, I should say.
So what number you want to give that?
For prose, a 3. No, I'm sorry, a 2.
I was going to say, three's
Three's
kind
a
of
little
high.
generous. I'd say a 2 just because I had an easy time following the timelines. For vibes, like I said, it took me 6 months to read because I just wasn't enthused to read the book. So I have to give it a 1. A 1 for vibes. It didn't really engage me. I wasn't super peeved to read the book, but we got through it, friends.
And that gives you a total score of a 2.6. So would you say that is a flop?
That is a total flop, dude.
Okay.
Aww. Sorry, Karen.
Sorry, Karen. I hope you don't listen to this, but
It is. I think we've had a couple authors engage with us on social. Minjin Lee has reposted us, but I believe we've only had 1 author ever listen to us, and that is because we don't tag authors in bad reviews if we think their book is a flop.
Well, also, it's famously the anniversary of that because famously when Ruta Sepetys listened to our episode, she wished me a happy birthday.
Oh my god, you're right!
That's amazing.
We miss you, Ruta.
Oh my god, I love Ruta Sepetys so much. I genuinely want to read her other books just to read them. But I'm going to find a way to make them on the pod.
We'll get there.
I think
Repeat author season.
You're a much better writer than Karen. I hate to say it. Not to flame this woman, but...
So true. And next time we read a Rudis Petty's book, we're going to make you read it, Santiago.
Oh, boy.
Well, that's actually a great segue, also so that we can stop being mean to Karen, because I do feel bad. But next week, we actually are reading a book by a repeat pod author.
And with a repeat guest.
Shocker. We are reading Circe by Madeline Miller with Jen
of Daughters of the Deer fame.
Thank you for pulling that out, because off the top of my head, I blanked on what episode that Jen had been on previously.
I was going to say Magic Treehouse, but that was Diana, who's already been back on the pod this season. But yes, with this book, we'll have read all of Madeline Miller's cinematic universe.
Yes, exactly. Because they do take place in the same universe, but we'll get into that next week.
Yes. And you know what makes Jen an extra great guest host? She follows us on social media at @5flop_pod on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. Actually, I think she only follows us on Instagram, but she is usually our first like there whenever I post anything.
Thank you, Jen.
And Santiago, you don't have a story graph.
I do not have a story graph, but please do as I say and not as I do, and join the story graph challenge, and you'll have a great time with it.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And if you did have a story graph, you would have joined our challenges.
Absolutely.
All right. And then also, if you ever want to get in touch with us, you can email us fiverfloppodcast@gmail.com. Or if you have a better recommendation than Santiago did, fill out the form in the bio of all of our social media accounts and let us know what that is.
Santiago, do you want to send us off?
Absolutely. Happy reading.
Bye.
Bye.